In today's video, I set up a racetrack for model trains to determine once and for all which one of my 19 G-scale locomotives is the fastest of all, and which one, or ones, are just not made for speed. I run all 19 trains on a layout that goes through the house and outside into the yard. There are long straightaways and gentle curves, so we can run the trains at full speed and crown one ultimate champion. Now, before I ran any of the trains on the layout, I sat down and made some predictions about how I thought each of the trains would do. Let's go over my top 3 picks. At number 1 on my list, the train that I think will beat all the others in this race is Emily. Emily has appeared in some of my Thomas & Friends train videos, and every time I've seen her run on my layouts, I've been impressed with her speed. At number 2 on my list is another Thomas & Friends train, James, the red engine. James is built very similar to Emily. I suspect that under the hood, he's basically identical. So I think James will do really well, just as Emily will do in this race. And the train that I think will come in 3rd place is my Amtrak locomotive. That's another one that has always impressed me with speed when I have a layout with gentle enough curves to be able to run the Amtrak at full speed. A lot of the layouts in my videos have very tight curves, and I have to run Amtrak at less than full throttle. That's my top 3, but I could totally be wrong. That certainly happens a lot in my life. It'll be fun to see how well I know my own model trains. Now, you're probably wondering who I think will be the slowest train. I think that's going to be my White Pass diesel locomotive. I like that model train a lot after having been on the real White Pass Railway in Alaska years ago, but the White Pass diesel has never impressed me much as far as speed is concerned. Well, let's get this competition started. The way we're going to do this is to run my DCC locomotives first. Those are the ones controlled by digital circuitry. And then, after I've run all the DCC locomotives, I'll change out the control equipment for a good old-fashioned analog power supply, and then we'll run all the trains whose speed depends on how much voltage I send to the tracks. My guess is those will be the fastest ones. Another good reason to save those for the last. So, let's go. First up today, a train that my viewers really seem to love. I get so many great comments about the Santa Fe Super Chief. It's a classic from an era that's long gone when passenger trains carried more passengers than airplanes. We'll give each train a running start, and the stopwatch starts as soon as it crosses the starting line. The tracks go out the door and past a waterfall before heading under my orange tree. And then there's a long straightaway coming up here in my side yard where the trains can build up speed. Now, I've run the Santa Fe Super Chief on lots of different layouts, and it's just not a fast train. You can see it just slowly lumbering along here. That's why my prediction was that this train would place 16th out of 19 trains today. At the halfway point, in my garage, the time for that first half was 32 seconds. We'll be able to compare halfway times for each of the locomotives to give us an idea of how they're doing as they go. We're going through the laundry room and into the kitchen here. Now we're able to pick it up on the dining room cam. That's the best quality camera out of the 5 different cameras that I've got running to capture these time trials. We're heading into the final segment here. Let's see what the final time is going to end up being. 1 minute 9 seconds is the official time for the Santa Fe Super Chief. I think that's going to be one of the slower times we'll see today. Next up, the train that I predicted will turn out to be the slowest of all the trains in the competition today. It's the White Pass diesel locomotive, just like the real thing that runs up in Skagway, Alaska. And we are off to a very slow start. You can see the GoPro mounted on the back of the locomotive. That's how I'm getting this shot here, a nice view of what's happening down there at ground level. Now see that black piece of pipe coming up on the left there? That is a vent pipe for our kitchen plumbing. Up until that point, the tracks are climbing ever so slightly, and after that point, it's sloped down and the train's pickup speed entering the garage. We're coming up to the halfway point here. The time at the half? 36 seconds. Now, to be honest, I don't think I did a good job of accurately placing that halfway marker. I think that may actually be a little short of the halfway point, but as long as we use that same spot to check each train's time, it'll give us a fair way to compare their performance as they go through the garage. For this White Pass locomotive, the halfway time was 4 seconds slower than what the Santa Fe Super Chief did. So once the trains reach the dining room, they have the finish line in sight, and I'm guessing that this will be one of the slowest runs we'll see in this race. Yes, there it is. 1 minute, 18 seconds. So far, my predictions are holding up pretty well. I did predict that the White Pass diesel locomotive would be slower than the Santa Fe Super Chief, and that's exactly what happened. I've run both of those locomotives many times on layouts, and they're among the slowest locomotives that I have. Next, we might as well run my other White Pass locomotive. This is a model of the classic old White Pass steam locomotive, number 52. Now, number 52 is no longer in service on the real White Pass Railway, but they do have a very similar locomotive, number 69, that's still up and running. I should mention that almost all of the model trains in my collection, including this model of the White Pass steam train, have really nice built-in sound effects, but I've decided to keep all the sound effects turned off for these time trials. So what you're hearing in the background is the noises that the train makes as it runs on the tracks through my house without any of the electronically created sounds that the model is capable of making. All right, we're coming up to the garage portion of the layout, and at the halfway sign, we'll get a feel for how this run is going for the White Pass steam train. It was 34 seconds at the half, and that surprises me a little bit because that's a little slower than the Santa Fe Super Chief. I predicted that this train would be a little faster. Well, what do I know? Don't worry, we do have some very speedy trains coming up later. This just isn't one of them. You can see the GoPro mounted on the back of the train. Normally in my model train videos, I make a point of not showing the GoPros, but this time I thought you might like to see how it's done. All right, the finish line is in sight, but this has definitely been a fairly slow run on the layout for the White Pass locomotive. The White Pass steam train ran the layout in 1 minute and 12 seconds. That's slower than the Santa Fe Super Chief ran it, and that surprises me. Well, let's run something completely different now. This is the least expensive DCC locomotive in my collection. It's a model of a Porter steam engine. All right, there's the start, and this little Porter steam engine is off and running. This looks like a faster run than we've seen so far. Now I'm checking my prediction. Okay, I predicted the Porter would place 14th out of the 19 locomotives in my collection. Well, that prediction may be a little off. Let's see what the time at the half is. Anything less than 30 seconds would be good. Oh my gosh, 24 seconds at the half. That's by far the shortest time to the halfway marker that we've seen so far. The Porter is blazing through the layout. Any finish time of less than a minute would be way better than we've seen up until now. The Porter looks like it'll make that easily. Look at that thing go. It's the little engine that could. Wow, that was a really big surprise to me. We've run 4 locomotives so far, and that's the first one to come in at under 1 minute. 52 seconds was the official time, and I did not expect that. Next up is a model of a classic Swiss steam locomotive. It carries an alphanumeric road number of LD1, the only train in my collection that is numbered that way. Off we go, It's our 5th train to run in this competition, with 14 more to go after this. I hope you've settled into a comfortable position. It takes a while to run every one of the trains in my collection. Compared to that speedy little porter that ran just before this, we're certainly at a noticeably slower pace this time around. I'm lucky to have this locomotive in my collection. Only 399 of them were ever manufactured, and I've got one. I consider myself lucky. 32 seconds was the time at the halfway sign, so that's about on pace with what the Santa Fe Super Chief did. I think I placed that halfway sign 6 or 10 feet short of where it really should have been. Looking at the view from that onboard GoPro and seeing that smokestack reminds me to mention that this locomotive's claim to fame is that it has the most realistic smoke effect of all my locomotives. I've got all the smoke units turned off today out of consideration for my wife. We just passed the 1 minute mark and she's heading towards the finish line. 1:09 is the official time, and that puts it in a tie for second place with the Santa Fe Super Chief. Only the little Porter steam locomotive has been faster than that so far. You know, we're having a little heat wave here in Grover Beach this weekend. It's been up as high as 92 degrees this weekend here. So it's kind of ironic to bring out this next train. It's a train I usually only run at Christmas time. The North Pole Express. Camera number 1, a GoPro, captures the start. Then a quick switch over to camera number 2, another GoPro for the fountain view. And we're on to camera number 3, my smallest GoPro, mounted on the train for the view from ground level. Unfortunately, that extra small GoPro that's mounted on the train has the worst microphone of all my cameras, so I'm not real thrilled with the sound quality we're getting of the sounds of the train in motion, but that's just the way it is. In the garage, camera number 4 is actually my cell phone, and the time at the halfway sign was 31 seconds, so I think we'll probably see a time of well over a minute when the North Pole Express reaches the finish line. Let's go back to camera number 3, mounted on top of the locomotive as we go through the kitchen. And there's camera number 5 in the dining room, which is my big Canon DSLR camera, which explains why the picture quality on this one is so much better than the other cams. All right, the finish line is in sight. Very shortly we'll know the final time for the North Pole Express. There you have it, a time of 1 minute and 11 seconds for the North Pole Express. That totally makes sense. It's within 1 second of the time that we got from the White Pass steam locomotive, and those two locomotives are both made by Piko and under the hood are essentially the same. Our next locomotive is also a Piko brand train. It seems like I've had this Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe engine for a long time. It was the first DCC locomotive that I bought back when I first got started with G-scale trains. But you know what? That really wasn't that long ago. That was only 5 years ago. Train number 707 is underway. This is the 7th locomotive we've run so far today, with 12 more locomotives to run after this. Remember I mentioned earlier about a black pipe coming up on the left and how the tracks go slightly uphill before it and downhill after it? Listen to the change in the engine sound. Did you hear that? It revved up a little when it hit the downhill. This is the last of 3 nearly identical Piko brand locomotives to run. Oh, that's interesting. This one hit the halfway sign just a little sooner than the other 2 did. We do have some much faster locomotives coming up right after this one. Things are going to get very interesting. We're heading into the kitchen and towards the dining room. Seeing the GoPro mounted on top of the trains must seem very odd to you. That's normal here at my house, making all these model train videos. All right, the finish line is in sight. With a time of 1 minute and 9 seconds, Engine number 707 was actually 2 seconds faster than the North Pole Express and 3 seconds faster than the White Pass steam train. That's a little bit of a surprise. I would have expected a three-way tie since those locomotives are essentially the same. To be honest, other than the Porter steam engine currently in first place with a time of only 52 seconds, we've had some really slow running times so far, but I think our next train is going to take things to a whole new level. I'm going to be bringing out the most famous tank engine in the world, Thomas, and he is fast, plus 11 other locomotives, as we try to figure out once and for all which is the fastest locomotive in my collection. Stick around, we'll be right back. We are back now, and I think you are about to see a display of speed. My prediction for Thomas was that he would be the 6th fastest locomotive out of the 19 we'll see today, and look at him go. Clearly, this is a much faster run than most of the ones we've seen today. He's already in the garage and coming up to the halfway sign. Oh my, 21 seconds at the half. Nobody has been even close to that so far. That is great to see after some very slow-moving locomotives earlier. And keep in mind, I think there may be 5 locomotives faster than this that we haven't even seen yet. Thomas is really speeding through this layout. Remember, it took the White Pass diesel 1 minute 18 seconds to do the same run. Wow, that was really impressive. Thomas just jumped right into first place in our competition with a time of 46 seconds. That's 6 seconds faster than the fastest time we've seen so far. And next up is Thomas's friend, Percy. He and Thomas are very similar in design. I would think that Percy would be just about as fast as Thomas. Let's see what happens. Heck yes, Percy is off to a fast start for sure. This is a lot of fun, seeing these fast ones race through the layout. I know this has become a really long video, but this is the payoff right here. So much fun to see how much faster some of these trains are than others. We're heading into the garage. I can't wait to see what the time is going to be at the halfway sign. 22 seconds. Okay, that's 1 second slower than Thomas. So it looks like Percy's going to be in second place, at least so far. But the trains I predicted as the top 5 haven't even run yet. There's the dining room cam as Percy sprints towards the finish line. That halfway time makes me think that he'll be just a second or two behind Thomas. That is a very strong time. 48 seconds, putting him in second place, just 2 seconds behind his pal, Thomas the Tank Engine. The next 3 locomotives we're going to run are nearly identical, except for the paint scheme. Here's the first of the 3. It's the First Responders train, with a road number, of course, of 911. This locomotive is manufactured by MTH Trains. It's an interesting company. Mike Wolfe started assembling and selling model trains at the age of 12. He went on to start his own company called Mike's Train House, and that later became what is now MTH Trains. They make some very high-quality G-scale trains at much more reasonable prices than LGB. I've got 3 of them in 3 different paint schemes. Look at that. 27 seconds was the time at the halfway sign. That's faster than all but a few of the trains we've run so far. When I made my predictions before we ran any of the trains today, I predicted that this would be the 5th fastest out of the 19 locomotives. Now, if you remember, Thomas and Percy both finished under 50 seconds. This First Responders locomotive is not in that league, but this is looking like a reasonably good run. Anything under a minute seems to be a pretty good time for a run on this layout. With a time of 58 seconds for the First Responders train, that is good enough for 4th place out of the 10 locomotives that we've run so far. This Santa Fe locomotive is nearly identical to that First Responders train we just ran. What a difference a paint scheme can make. I love the look of this classic Santa Fe red and silver paint scheme. They call it the War Bonnet paint scheme. very similar to the one used on the Santa Fe Super Chief. Here we go. Same basic locomotive as the last one, just a different paint scheme. I'll be surprised if there's much difference in the times between the two. I'm definitely a fan of these MTH brand model trains. If I ever had to thin out my collection, which I don't expect to have to do anytime soon, but if I did have to get rid of a few of the trains, this one would definitely be a keeper. There's the view from the garage cam, and it looks like, yep, the exact same time as the other MTH brand train did at the halfway sign, 27 seconds. No surprises. Those sheets of wood on the floor, that's OSB, oriented strand board. The flooring in our house sits about an inch or so higher than the cement in our garage. The OSB is an easy way for me to get the tracks to very smoothly transition up and down between those two elevations. Okay, that's exactly what I would have expected, the exact same time that the first responders train got. And here's Amtrak, the third of my three nearly identical MTH brand -8 locomotives. Now, my prediction was that this train would actually be faster than the two other versions in my collection. Let's see if I'm right. All right, Amtrak, let's see what you can do. I'm pretty sure we're going to prove here that this train is faster than the other two nearly identical locomotives in my collection. It's something I've noticed about this one when I've run it at the same time as those others. It seems like a nice fast run so far. As soon as we get to the halfway sign, I think we'll prove it is. Let's see. Yeah, look at that. 23 seconds at the half. Wow. The other two similar trains were 4 seconds slower than that. Now, I like this particular train a lot. There's an Amtrak station less than a mile from our house, and I've seen Amtrak locomotives that look just like this one go through there, so it's fun to have one in my collection. And I like that it'll run fast if you want it to. With a time of just 50 seconds, the Amtrak beat both of his cousins by 8 seconds. I've run that Amtrak train on various layouts in my house many times. It has always seemed to me to be a very fast train. But I have no idea why it's so much faster than the two other very similar locomotives I got from that same manufacturer. Well, this has been a really fun race so far. We've run all 12 of my DCC locomotives now, and next we're going to run the analog trains, including my number 1 and number 2 picks for fastest locomotives. That's all coming up right after this. Back to our race. This is certainly one of the most unusual locomotives in my collection. This is Toby the Tram Engine, one of the Thomas & Friends trains from Bachmann. If aerodynamics have any correlation to speed in this competition, Toby's rectangular design doesn't bode well for him, but I guess it doesn't because look at him go. This seems like an incredibly fast pace. He's coming up to the garage already. Let's check his halfway time. Oh my! To 17 seconds? The fastest halfway time we've seen before this was 21. He blew that away. Wait, what was my prediction for Toby? Oh no, I predicted he'd end up in 8th place. I think I got that seriously wrong. This is by far the fastest run we've seen yet. Holy cow, I don't believe what we just saw. 37 seconds. That's 9 seconds faster than the fastest run we've had so far. And look at him. That does not look like a train that is made for speed. Well, my prediction for Toby was way off, so I think we should get a reaction from a man in the street. Yeah, he's absolutely right. I totally misjudged Toby. My number 1 and number 2 picks are coming up, and maybe they'll give Toby a run for the money. But I'm fairly sure that our next locomotive is going to be one of the slowest. It's the Piko Clean Machine, a battery-operated track cleaning locomotive. A track cleaning locomotive, if it's well designed, is going to be slow. To do a good job of cleaning off the oxidation on top of the rails, it can't be zooming along. It has to go slowly. Now, this is the only locomotive in my collection that is battery powered, so sometimes I use this as a track tester when I only have a layout partially built and not wired up to electricity yet. It doesn't need power from the rails to operate. This is a fairly inexpensive item as far as G-scale goes. $240 for one of these from trainworld.com, which is where I've bought almost all of my model train equipment. Well, I can't wait to see what the time will be when it reaches the halfway sign. 44 seconds. Wow, that's really slow. The train before this, Toby, did the entire layout, not half the layout, the entire layout, in 7 seconds less than that. Well, I don't know what I was thinking when I ranked this 18 out of 19. I thought the White Pass Diesel was going to be the slowest train, but the White Pass got to the halfway sign in 36 seconds, and it just took the Piko Clean Machine 44. So clearly I bungled my last place prediction for the White Pass, and based on the 5 locomotives we have left after this, it's pretty clear that what you're looking at right here is going to go down as the slowest run of the day. 1 minute and 34 seconds. Wow, that was slow. I haven't seen anything that slow since my performance in high school track and field. Well, this locomotive runs hugely faster than that last one. Get ready for a speed run here, I think. This was number 2 on my list of predictions about which were the fastest locomotives in my collection. It's Thomas's friend James, the red engine. He's off to a great start, that's for sure. Look at that speed he's got going. It's so ironic to have this speed demon right after we had the slowest train in my collection. I had ranked James at number 2, but with Toby totally surprising me, I'm going to guess that you're looking at my 3rd fastest engine here. 19 seconds at the halfway sign, 2 seconds slower than Toby, 2 seconds faster than Thomas the Tank Engine. I think the only one that might be faster than this, besides Toby, might be Emily. She'll be coming up a few minutes from now. Okay, we're in the home stretch here. Let's see what his finish time is. That is exactly what I was expecting from James. His time of 40 seconds puts him into 2nd place, just 3 seconds behind Toby, who I never would have expected to be in 1st place, so what do I know? Here's a locomotive you don't see much in my YouTube videos. This is from Bachmann, the same company that makes the Thomas & Friend trains, but I'm pretty sure this is going to run a lot slower than Thomas and most of his friends. Here in our family, we refer to this train as the Valvoline train. It came in a set with a Valvoline oil tank car. My brother-in-law gave it to me a year or 2 ago. He won it about 30 years ago in some contest at an auto parts store. It ran around the Christmas tree in his family when his kids were young. I like the styling, looking like a train from the 1800s, but it's such an old train that it doesn't, of course, have DCC circuitry. So I don't run it a lot, but every now and then I do, as a salute to my brother-in-law. 33 seconds was the time at the halfway sign, so that's a very slow time compared to most of my other model trains. In fact, only 2 trains have taken more than 33 seconds to reach the halfway sign so far. But it's pretty cool that a 30-year-old model train is still running fine. This was literally collecting dust in a storage shed on my brother-in-law's farm for the last few years. It's good to let it run every now and then. This locomotive is labeled for the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad, making it one of 5 Santa Fe locomotives in my collection. One minute and 12 seconds. That is the 3rd slowest time we've seen so far in this competition. I think this next train is going to beat that fairly handily. This train is a real fan favorite. I get a lot of great comments about the Coca-Cola train, and it has the distinction of being the only locomotive in our race today with a polar bear in the cab. I feel lucky to have this train in my collection. They haven't made these in a long time. I managed to find one on eBay that someone had sitting on a shelf, brand new in the box in new condition. That was a great find, considering how long it's been since LGB made these. In their new products for 2020, LGB is producing a new Coca-Cola train, but I don't think I'm going to buy one because it's yellow. To me, anything Coca-Cola should be red. 27 seconds was the time at the halfway sign, so that puts this locomotive right in the middle of the pack, not among the fastest and not among the slowest. This is another train in my collection that doesn't have DCC circuitry built in, but I'm willing to work around that because the train is just so cool looking. I like Coca-Cola memorabilia, and that's somewhat ironic since my preferred soft drink is actually Diet Pepsi. Just barely squeaking in under a minute there, the Coca-Cola train runs my layout in 59 seconds. That's 17 of my 19 model trains that have run the layout so far. 2 more to come, including the one that earlier I had predicted was going to be the fastest one of all. But before we do a speed run like that, I think we better send out the track inspection car, featuring the head of the railway, Sir Topham Hatt, or Lego version, in the driver's seat. Fans of Thomas & Friends know that the track cleaning locomotive is known as Winston. And look at the fantastic view from the GoPro mounted on the back. That is such a cool view over the shoulder of Sir Topham Hatt, a guy who is also known in the Thomas & Friends world as the Fat Controller. I just love this view. It's like you're sitting in the back seat doing a ride-along. And even though this is actually a slower run than the Coca-Cola train we saw just before this, the time at the halfway sign was about 3 seconds slower. It feels like a faster run because the camera is sitting down much closer to the tracks, and that creates a better sensation of speed in the video. I have to say that this was probably my favorite run of the day. I loved that point of view shot from behind Sir Topham Hatt's shoulder. It was kind of a shame when we switched over to the dining room cam. Looks like the finish time will be a little over a minute. Winston is so small and lightweight, I thought that might be an advantage for him today, but his time of 1 minute and 3 seconds just wasn't enough to put him in the running. Well, we've run 18 locomotives so far today. Toby is the big surprise, sitting at number 1 so far. Here comes our final locomotive for the race, and this was my number 1 pick to win. Let's see how she does. This is Emily. Well, we're 32 minutes into this video, but Emily is going to make quick work of this final run of the day. I don't think she's going to be able to beat that surprisingly fast run that Toby made, but look at her go. We'll know shortly. Toby's time at the half was 17 seconds. Oh, that's too bad. It was 18 for Emily. So it looks like she's on track to miss Toby's record by about 2 or 3 seconds. It's still a great run by Emily, but it's just not going to be enough to beat Toby. She's certainly way better looking than Toby. Let's see what her time at the finish will be. Well, the surprise winner today was Toby, beating both my number 1 and number 2 predictions by 3 seconds. Let's put up on the screen the full list of the results and my predictions alongside there. You can see that I had Toby down at number 8 on the list. So that was way off. That was probably my biggest mistake of the day. And I also didn't recognize which one was going to be the slowest of all. And that was the Piko Clean Machine, the track cleaning locomotive. Well, this has been a good example of me being right about a few things, but wrong about a lot of things. My wife is going to love this part of the video. Well, there you have it. All 19 of the locomotives in my collection. I admit that some of the predictions I made were really bad, but it was a lot of fun to finally do some time trials and once and for all settle the issue of which were my fastest and slowest locomotives. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm Jim Zim. Subscribe to my channel if you enjoy model train videos, and give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed watching it.